This is to say, Happy Easter to the world, to Chapel of Christ the Glorious King members at home and abroad, from our chief promoter, the board of trustees, members, the management of Chapel of Christ the Glorious King, and the entire membership as well. Happy Good Friday. We also want to appreciate God for sparing our lives and keeping us from all manners of challenges that individuals and groups face at a time like this. We are trusting God that He will carry us through this process and His name shall be glorified. Despite we couldn't meet together, there is an opportunity through this medium to still hear one another as the Lord speaks with us. Our topic for this Good Friday message is Cross, the wisdom and the power of God at work. Cross, the wisdom and the power of God at work. You remember, Chapel of Christ, the Glorious King members, that this will not be the first time we will speak on the idea of the cross. As deemed fit by church in the history, they have chosen a date like this to remember when Jesus Christ was crucified. It's called Good Friday, but what is good in the death of a person? That is the paradox that is in the date and the day and the event of today. Surprisingly, the death of Jesus Christ is good. Good for humanity, in which you are included. It spelled the end of Satan and the beginning of a new era for humankind. It set us aside permanently, especially those who give their life to God through Jesus Christ, set us aside so that we can truly worship God. So it is good. But what exactly happened today? That is what we want to review. And I'm praying that God will speak with you anew and afresh as we look at the scripture together. Our text is from 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 6 to 8. And of particular interest is the submission of Paul. He said, if the prince of this world have known what will be their outcome, they will not have crucified Jesus Christ. Which means, as it came out to be, what would have turned out to be bad, or what would have been concluding to be bad in the death of Jesus Christ, was actually a strategy of God, which was not known to Satan, who planned, executed, and supervised the process of Jesus Christ. Something happened. Something really happened, which we are remembering today. I'm pleading with you. You might have heard severally about the cross and death of Jesus Christ. I pray that you will listen attentively and let God speak with you again, so that something new might be dropped in your heart and you attain a new level of grace that understanding the cross actually means for us as children of God. As it is, what do you understand by the idea of wisdom? This is an intriguing topic, and of all, in my studies, of all I've come across, I found that of EW very, very interesting. And let me quote what he said about wisdom. He said, wisdom is the ability to devise perfect ends and to achieve those ends by the most perfect means. Wisdom is the ability to devise perfect ends and to achieve those ends by the most perfect means. We are convinced cross is wisdom of God. You will see with me that God, in his wisdom, has seen that his ability to take charge of the sin that his ability to take charge of the sin of the world, and especially to bring humanity back to him, is to go through the cross. So while he was at work, and he's still at work anyway up to today, there are so many things that were kept in the dark for those who thought they were educated, for those who thought they were wise, that they couldn't understand about what God was doing. In fact, Satan himself didn't know what was ahead of him until he crucified Jesus Christ. So, what is the idea of the cross? You say that I've just explained or defined what wisdom is. I'm trying to help us to see also what we mean by cross. Cross is not just a wooden item. To Christians, it is not just pendax we put on our neck. It's not just a sign on our board or hung on the wall of our church. It is really an instrument that God used to accomplish his purpose. And by that, I mean, it is important for us to understand, because situating the idea of wisdom in the history of the world in the Middle East will help us to understand what God really did, to help us to understand how his wisdom stood out, and indeed how it became a power that Satan can't handle henceforth. So let me give us some ideas of wisdom. I have a number of them. God, in his perfect device, came through the wickedness of the world to defeat the long-standing enemy of man and that of God, using himself in the process. It wasn't just ordinary person that hung on the cross today. It is, as Revelation 13:8 says, is the Lamb of God that was slain from the beginning of the foundation. What we are remembering today about salvation of the world is what God has planned. As I used to say, salvation of humankind is not an afterthought. It was definite plans of God to see to human being reconciled to him, as at when he had planned to do so. In my view, understanding the idea of cross will help us to situate ourselves in the plan of God, and we're able to take stand to represent God as will be needed, because that is the reason for which we are saved. So let's quickly look at what cross means in the history, especially in the Middle East. Number one, cross is a method of worst death or execution. To think of cross is to choose the worst form of death for an offender. And you will see that God came in the most crude execution of an offender. Though Jesus Christ didn't personally offend, he was carrying the sin of the world. And the most excruciating death that was available that time, God allowed his son to pass through it, which means that there is no worse death as at that time than to go through the cross. Jesus did. Number two, Cross is meant for hardened criminal. Hardened criminal. Jesus chose to carry your sin and mine, those of us that might have offended by our personal sin. That is not the only thing that Jesus Christ died for. That which you have inherited from Adam. What do I mean? You are not a sinner because you have personally sinned. You are a sinner because you came through Adam. So the worst kind of sin that anybody could have committed, Jesus Christ took it upon himself. And by the way, there is no classes in sin. Sin is sin. Once you have committed one, you have actually offended all the laws. So the most or worst form of death will come to the worst of the enemies of the state and of the nation. So Jesus Christ came through that line and he died the worst form of death. Number three, cross is also associated with dangerous criminal. That was what the leaders of the day did for us. They saw Jesus as most dangerous enemy of the state, of the religion of Judaism. In fact, they prefer to set a criminal free who was already convicted than to let Jesus Christ, whom they had no personal attachments of sin to him, to be free. Another one I want you to look at about cross is that one must have been condemned to be made to carry cross. You remember Jesus has to carry cross, showing that he was already condemned. The law of Israel does not judge anybody at night, but Jesus was summarily judged and sentenced at night. You will say, law offenders are judging someone who has not personally offended, but that will not be true. At that time, Jesus, though did not have personal offense, by plans of God, he laid the offense of the world upon him. And so, in the crude way that human being could carry out assignment, they judge Jesus at night, though wrong, but all the same, it was the plan of God that he just have to die. Another area I want you to look at is that anyone associated with cross will have to go through severe punishment. As a Christian, very severe beating, very painful processes. In fact, the last aspect of judgment of worst offenders are to carry cross. So you will see that there are so many things that had happened to Jesus before we saw him carrying his personal cross. At that time, it's not that what happened to him before carrying cross did not matter. It only shows that he had been suffering before we saw him carrying cross, not for personal offense, not for personal sin, but for the sins of every one of us who has been, who is now, or who will come before the world comes to an end. In another perspective, I want you to see that carrying cross is not only the victim that suffers, those associated with the victim at the family level, friends, associates, they also suffer, especially stigma. And that is what was intended for allowing individuals to carry cross from within the town to be led outside. Everybody would have seen that this is a worse offender. And by that, it means that carrying cross is a way of announcing to the public that, yes, I have been convicted and I'm a worst of the offenders of the state and I deserve to die the worst kind of death. That's not the only thing that I want you to notice there. In practice, I want you to see that victims that carry cross is to show that individuals that see them will also abhor the sin that they have committed. But it will be surprising that despite that Romans citizens do commit grievous offense, Romans never allow their citizens to go through to die by the cross. You will say they are too holy or better. That makes Israelite to curse anyone that will hang on the cross, because Israel was thinking that it would be very, very bad for an Israelite to become the worst offender. So to help and guide people not to commit sins that will warrant dying by cross, Israelites placed curse upon anyone. So curse is the one that hangs upon the cross. You will see this idea in Galatians 3:13 and also in Deuteronomy 21:23. So to be made to carry cross is to force the carrier to announce that they are tough criminal, already judged, found guilty, and condemned. So Jesus Christ did not hate to go through this process, not because he has offended, but because he has to pay the price for the sin of humanity, which includes you and also includes me. So, without knowing that what was going on was going to spell his doom, Satan went ahead, instigating several individuals that were significant to make his plan happen, to see that Jesus Christ. It was a summary of the wisdom of God at work and the foolishness of Satan and all its elements also at work. You will ask me, who wins? Actually, if Jesus Christ had to go all through these processes and he did not rise, Paul says we are the worst of races. But the idea of the cross was very, very important to what he came to do. By Sunday, we'll be celebrating his resurrection. But the resurrection wouldn't have been possible if not that cross first took place. Hello, friend. I want you to see this and understand that in the wisdom of God, he has included you. He has included your friend, your parents, your brothers in the process of salvation. And he knew that we cannot pay the price. We cannot actually give what was needed because all of us have sinned and we have come short of the glory of God. No sinner will die and go to hell and be able to come back. Only God himself can do it. And when Jesus Christ died too, he went there and came back only because God's power, in God's wisdom, he has decided that there will be an end to the suffering for sin, either of human beings or even for his son. He has decided by going to the cross, by allowing himself to suffer the kind of suffering that we are discussing this morning, an end will come to the suffering of yourself, myself, as far as sin could met out punishment. And that means that there was a definite end to the antics of Satan in holding human beings down. And that was why when God was satisfied, God's anger was satisfied of punishing sin, he had. By the grace of God on Sunday, we will look at the implication of that. But today, as we have said in our topic, the first part is to see the wisdom of God. Then the second part, briefly, I want to talk about the power of God that has been exercised and exhibited on the cross. There are two areas I want to point you to at this time. You will remember the Jews, they had a kind of Messiah they were looking for. Someone who is a political leader, someone who will restore Israel back to them. So when Jesus came, the one that was sent, the Messiah, the Christ, when he came, it didn't fit their plan. So they couldn't handle what he was doing. They couldn't understand what he was doing. But that did not stop the activities of God. That does not stop the wisdom of God playing out. Also, you will remember at the time in Matthew 16, he asks the disciples, "What do you think of me?" You know the parties that were mentioned. You are Elijah, you are this, you are that. And until Peter mentioned that Jesus Christ is the Son of the living God, there couldn't be any headway. Now, what am I saying? I want you to understand that the power of God is the revelation that will come to anyone who will see what God has done in Jesus Christ. The power of God is to help us to see that there is only one Messiah that is to save the world, and he had come. Jews didn't see him. For the Greek, with their sound education, they couldn't reason out that that is how God has prepared his Messiah. So, for you and for me, the power of God in the cross is its ability to hold Satan and all his host to ransom. And that will play out in your life. In fact, cross stopped the menace of Satan upon human being. The predatory activities of Satan upon human being came